Okay, so I'll read you a little bit of James. Very different voice. Few of you have heard me read James before. He has a twang. There's nothing I can do about it. So y'all bear with me. Okay. And y'all also just note that it takes me a moment to get into his head because I'm not quite as comfortable with his voice yet. All right. So in this scene, this is right at the beginning of the novel. So, okay, I probably should explain this real quickly. So, part one of Smoke and Glass is nonlinear. It goes back and forth between two narrators, Joel and James, and it moves in and out of scenes that take place anywhere from 1991 to 2007. And it truly is a mess. I mean, there's in theory a method to the madness. I wanted it to be complicated. I wanted the reader to have to work. And so this particular scene starts the novel, and it's in 1996. It's James's voice. He's in Austin, and he's in graduate school for classics, and he and Joel are still living together. You know, they're friends. That's it, just friends, and they're living together in this little house near campus. Okay. So this is February in 1996. I've been staring at Joel for an hour as he scribbles across one sheet of paper after another, turning the pages in that sketch pad like he can't get whatever's in his head out quick enough. Maybe he can't. But the way he has one hand gripping that beer of his, the way he's making his way through that 12 pack like he's checking each bottle off some kind of master list, I know what's bugging him, and there's jack shit I can do about it. Outside, the trees groan with the wind and cold sweeps around the window frames. I could use a cigarette, but I already gave that a try when I lowered myself to the swing on our front porch after I got home from campus and found him sitting there with a pack of Marlboros and what was even then probably one beer too many. Freezing out here, I mumbled after a few minutes, and he didn't bother to respond. I stuck it out, sucking my way through one of his cigarettes until he stood up so fast the chains on the swing rattled. I followed him into the room at the back of the house where he paints. Something on your mind, James? He asked like he was challenging me, and I shook my head. He picked up a pad of paper like he was thinking about drawing some, but back in the kitchen, he cracked open another beer and had himself a long, belligerent swallow. Are you joining me in a drink or what? He asked, sitting down at the bar. Man, I couldn't refuse him. Not after the way we fought over Christmas when I gave him shit for taking money from his dad. We'd barely spoken for 3 weeks, and each day had me digging my heels in deeper. If his dad hadn't blown into town to tell him he's getting married again, I might still be holding a grudge. Joel's barely over that hangover, and now another night's coming on thick and dark, and he's buried in his sketch pad. I should be prepping for the class I've got to teach tomorrow, but instead I'm in the kitchen pretending like I need to eat when really I just want to look over his shoulder so I can see what I'm dealing with here. Oh, crap. That's his mom. If you want to see what I'm doing, he says without looking up, ask. Let me see, I say, and he shoves the pad in my direction. She's all over the page, and when I start flipping back, I find her on the others too. She isn't smiling in any of them except for one where she's sitting on a tombstone. Kind of morbid, don't you think? I ask, and he scowls, yanking the pad from my hands. Why don't you just tell me what I should draw, James? He says. That's not what I meant, I mutter, but he's already working away on a fresh sheet of paper. I usually like to watch him, but I've got an uneasy feeling as a tree appears under his fingers. He pauses to pull on his cigarette, then gives me a wink. Guess who's in the tree? He says. A fucking bird, Joel, I answer. How am I supposed to know? You're in the tree, he tells me, looking down at everything. Fuck you, I mumble, and he laughs, drawing me into the picture. He catches me looking 19 instead of 24, and I stare with something like fascination at the way he can throw this together from memory without even taking the time to look up at me. Am I smoking? I ask, seeing something between my fingers. You're always smoking, he murmurs. I steal one of his cigarettes as I take in his sketch. Where you? I finally ask, exhaling a big old cloud of smoke, and he smirks. Now you're complicating the picture, he says, but he's drawn again, a bullseye portrait of himself under the tree. Why aren't you up there with me? I ask. Because I'm circling, James, he says. I'm forever fucking circling. I don't love that tone of his, but at least he's not sketching his mom sitting in a cemetery. Do you want to know where she's hiding? He asks, like he knows what I'm thinking. He sounds so sly, he gives me the creeps, and I almost shake my head. With the tip of his pencil, he shades a heart in the center of his chest, then holds up his hand like he doesn't want me to comment just yet. As I watch, he sketches an itty-bitty shadow, so faint I might have missed the pencil lines if I hadn't seen him make them myself. You should have left me out of it, he finally says, reaching for his cigarette. I don't mind a little complication, I tell him, and he locks his eyes on mine. That's James. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the claps, y'all. That's really good.